Hello everyone and welcome back to the 100k budget fuel challenge. I don't have anything else to say, so let's get into it. So, after the absolute nightmare that was round 3, it's time for some of the eliminated competitors to be given a second chance. So here is the plan that I have. 24 entries heading into the next round. But first, we need to actually determine who takes up the said 24 spots. You know what? I'm gonna give the first 4 spots to Zetsu, Tendril, Stolas Enthusiast, and Jomanas Jomanani because they made it through round 4 no problem. Now, who takes up the rest of the 20 spots is gonna be entirely decided by today's races. So what are we waiting for? Let's start the races with the first one being set at Tokyo Expressway Central counterclockwise. So, for the first heat we have Brett Fox, Arcaadely, Jakubek, Marionette, Chudmobile, Fancy Wreck, Spike 1999, Gregor, Reagan, Agato, Pin, Chotka, Vigilante SVT, Oatmeal Scucolati, Green Turismo J, Ferrari GT Sport, Dry Riser Inlet, and Julie Canoto. The race begins with what looks like Arcaadely already overtaking Brett Fox. But he's not alone as Jakubek, Marionette, Fancy Wreck, Spike 1999, Gregor, and Agato also overtake the high ace. Oh, and don't forget Pin, Vigilante SVT, and Oatmeal Scucolati. I think this is also a good time for me to tell you guys that whoever is gonna be in last place in each one of the first 3 races is going back on the bench and is unable to partake in the rest of the redemption. And that information pretty much puts Brett Fox and all of these fellers in a dire situation. Thankfully for our previous winner here, it doesn't look like Ferrari is gonna be the one that's getting benched. He successfully overtook the high ace, with him now trying to catch back up to everybody else, who themselves are now trying to battle against each other for the top 2 spots. With the 2 people currently taking up those 2 spots being Jakubek and Arcaadely, followed by Marionette and Fancy Wreck, who themselves are trying to catch up while also making sure the faster cars behind them don't overtake them. While it may be working for Marionette, it isn't really working for Fancy Wreck, however, because the AE86 is now being chased down by the Vigilante 8-mobile, RX-8, and Scirocco. Unfortunately though, he isn't really able to hold off 3 cars at the same time. As a result, Vigilante SVT overtook him. While Gregor also tries to overtake Fancy Wreck, Vigilante SVT successfully caught up to Marionette and Jakubek, successfully overtaking the Swift and reaching overtaking distance of the SFR heading into the second lap. If you're wondering what Arcaadely has been doing during all of this, he's been trying to pull away from his competition, but it doesn't look like the Demio succeeded in that. However, even though it didn't succeed, he is still in first place currently. Meanwhile, further back, it looks like Fancy Wreck has been successfully overtaken by Gregor and Julie Canoto. I also see that Chotka, Green Turismo J, Reagan, and Dry Riser Inlet successfully overtook Brett Fox, therefore they are not getting benched. Which is good, because even if they don't place in the top 2, they'll still have a chance at redemption. In the meantime, Fancy Wreck is trying not to lose time by making sure nobody else overtakes the AE86. Not only that, Gregor has been overtaken by Julie Canoto and so was Marionette, meaning that it's now a battle for second place between the 3 competitors that already got enough spotlight as is. And currently in the said battle, it looks like Arcaadely is winning, as Julie Canoto overtakes Jakubek, leaving him with Marionette and the others. It's now a battle between the Demio and the RX-8. Who will come out on top and who will fall? Let's keep watching to find out. Julie Canoto tries to overtake Arcaadely, but he doesn't succeed in doing that. But while all of this was happening in a battle for second place, The Vigilante 8 mobile has been pulling away from its competition this entire time, meaning that spot number 5 into the next round goes to Vigilante SVT. And it looks like even though Arcadely was really close, it looks like Julie Kanoto is the one that comes out on top. But not to worry for Arcadely, as he and everybody else in this race still have a chance at redemption. Well, everyone except Brett Fox, as he is the one that's going back on the bench. For the second heat, we have Godhead, Xolstis, Enignot, Rosie Miranto, Dog Hitting Hamster, Tom the Cat, the Sigma Thruster, Halo, Terrahawk Izard, Roxy Leyland, Martso, Cassidy J, The Thunderstorm Gaming, A-Lord GT, Kirby, Freddy Fuelbear, and Bastardizer. Off the line we go, as it looks like Godhead has a pretty decent start. Same can be said for Enignot, as it looks like he successfully overtakes Xolstis and the Land Cruiser right off the bat, already pulling away from her and many other competitors like the Sigma Thruster, who, if you're wondering, was also able to overtake Xolstis. And the result of this is that he and Rosie Miranto are trying to make sure no one else overtakes them in the meantime. While that is happening, it looks like the carnage in the back of the grid is resulting in Thunderstorm Gaming being currently in last place. Anyways, back to the front of the grid, it looks like the Alphard of Rosie Mirantos has been overtaken by Dog Hitting Hamster and Vid. A-Lord, who happens to be next in line, also tries to overtake Rosie Miranto and succeeds. On this high-speed section of the track, it looks like the Sigma Thruster and Xolstis are being chased down by Vi. Not only that, but the S15 successfully overtakes both of them. Unfortunately for A-Lord GT, however, he wasn't really able to overtake them yet. As you can see, he is currently being caged in by the Sigma Thruster, Civic, and M2 competition. While that is happening, Vid takes first place away from Enignot in the Kangoo. But regardless, yeah, it looks like the Kangoo really did succeed in building a gap here. Meanwhile, A-Lord GT successfully made it through the pack and is now trying to catch up to Enignot. Same is true for Kirby, as he successfully made it past Godhead's cock blocking, leaving the others that are stuck behind the Land Cruiser behind. Heading into the second lap of the race, he too is now trying to catch up to the Kangoo and overtake it. Speaking of which, how are things going for the 370Z? Switching the camera over to him, from catching up, a lot has changed. From actually overtaking Enignot, on the other hand, not so well. And Enignot's cock blocking allows Vid to secure himself the first place, since he was able to pull away by a lot from the Kangoo. Either way, the Kangoo is now battling the 370Z, and Enignot is actually holding up very well. Not only that, but soon Kirby is also gonna be in his overtaking distance. So he better give it all he's got to make sure they do not overtake him. And after 2 failed attempts at overtaking the Kangoo, A-Lord GT tries for the 3rd time, and unfortunately for the Kangoo, he finds an overtaking opportunity, taking 2nd place and robbing Enignot of a 2nd chance in the tournament as a result. However, Kirby was not as lucky and he is still stuck behind the Kangoo. In the meantime, the rest of the group is really packed together, as it looks like Thunderstorm Gaming's Scirocco is still in last place, not being able to overtake the Qashqai or the Alphard, and it also looks like more people are slowly getting out of the cock block. But unfortunately, it is too late for them now, because Vi, who has a massive lead over everyone else in the race, has claimed himself the first spot of returning into the tournament for this race. And he is being followed by A-Lord GT in 2nd place. Kirby and Enignot may have pulled a great fight between each other, but it doesn't look like either of them are gonna be returning yet. Same thing can be said for Roxy Leyland, Freddy Fuelbear, Xolstis, Bastardizer, Cassidy J, Martso, Godhead, and basically everybody else who finishes the race except for Thunderstorm Gaming, who is in last place and as a result is going back on the bench. With the first race done, that's spots number 5, 6, 7, and 8 taken up. However, this redemption round is not over yet. Let's head into the second race at Tsukuba Circuit. So, for the first heat we have Godhead, Xolstis, Rosie Miranto, Tom the Cat, Halo, Marionette, Chudmobile, Martso, Gregor, Cassidy J, Reagan, Agato, Oatmeal, Scucolati, Ferrari GT Sport, and Freddy Fuel Bear. Starting off with what looks like everybody trying to mass overtake Xolstis and Godhead. With what looks like the first ones to be succeeding in doing that are Marionette, Rosie Miranto, and Agato. And ironically enough, it looks like Rosie Miranto and Marionette are the first ones to claim the top 2 spots. Not for long, however, because Rosie Miranto immediately gets overtaken by Agato's WRX. The Alphard is being followed by Tom the Cat, Halo, Martso, and Cassidy J, who, if you're wondering, also made it past the Land Cruiser. Chudmobile and Gregor, on the other hand, are not as lucky. Neither is Reagan because it took him this long to make it past the SIR2 Civic of Xolstis's. Either way, the Focus ST and the DS3 are being followed by the Crossbow R and the C7 Corvette. While that is happening, Tom the Cat is trying to overtake Rosie Miranto and actually succeeds in doing that alongside Halo. But the Mikuyara's overtake may have been in vain. You know why? Because Freddy Fuel Bear already made it past Rosie Miranto, Cassidy J, Martso, and Ferrari. Into the second lap we go as Freddy Fuel Bear successfully overtakes the Mikuyara and the Cash Guy, with him now off to try to take the lead away from Marionette and Agato, who, if you're wondering, both the Swift Sport and the WRX have built a respectable lead over the rest of the pack. Quite surprisingly, it looks like Agato is struggling to overtake Marionette. And honestly, I do not blame him considering how tight of a track Tsukuba is. I guess you can say this is another case of you may be in overtaking distance, but that doesn't immediately guarantee an overtake. And speaking of overtaking opportunities, he finds one on this section of the track, and he can now easily take first place. Wait, how is he losing against the Swift? Okay, now that wasn't expected, I have to admit. And while they were busy battling against each other, Freddy Fuel Bear successfully caught up to them. And he, alongside Agato, successfully overtake Marionette. Man, this track really does seem to be a weak point for Marionette. And after overtaking the Swift, Agato and Freddy Fuel Bear have the shortest battle in history because Freddy Fuel Bear immediately wins. But let's not forget that there are other people in this race too. The next positions are being taken up by Cassidy J, Ferrari, Tom the Cat, and Halo, with Gregor, Reagan, and Chudmobile successfully making it past Rosie Miranto, which unfortunately can't be said for Oatmeal Scucolati at the moment, but at least the A45 is not in last place, so it won't be getting benched. Nor will Tom the Cat and the rest of these guys and girls if they keep up the good work of not being in last place. Cassidy J and Ferrari made it through the pack, however, it may already be too late to try to catch up to the front runners. Not only that, but poor Marionette has to relive the events of being in a sad third place. Because out of all the competitors that ended up in this race, Freddy Fuel Bear comes out on top, and same can be said for Agato. Meanwhile, Marionette, like I said, does not get that comfort. Thankfully for him, this is still not the end. He still has a chance to return, and so does Ferrari, Cassidy J, Reagan, Gregor, Halo, Chudmobile, Tom the Cat, Martso, Oatmeal Scucolati, Rosie Miranto, and Godhead. As I guess the Land Cruiser's short-ass gears managed to beat out the SIR2 Civic's long-ass gears. In conclusion, I don't know why you were cheering so much about Marionette not making it Xolstis, because you yourself are going back on the bench. For the second heat, we have Enignot, Dog Hitting Hamster, the Sigma Thruster, Arcaadely, Jakubek, Fancy Wreck, Terra Hockeyzard, Roxy Leyland, Spike 1999, Pin, Chotka, Green Turismo J, Dry Riser Inlet, Kirby, and Bastardizer. And so let the race begin. Right away, everybody is trying to overtake Enignot and Dog Hitting Hamster. And a lot of them succeed right away. Mainly Terra, Fancy Wreck, the Sigma Thruster, and Arcaadely, with the latter two actually taking up the top two for a bit. Not only that, but Pin also manages to sneak his way into the top 5, successfully overtaking the Super Beast and leaving him behind to battle with the others who also made it past Enignot, those being Jakubek and Kirby. Roxy also nearly overtakes the Kangoo but falls just short, and her slowing down because of that results in Spike 1999 overtaking her. While Jakubek is too busy giving Terra PTSD, Kirby manages to overtake both of them and the Sigma Thruster, allowing Kirby to climb up to the top 4, with him now successfully closing in the gap that Pin, Fancy Wreck, and Arcaadely built up. Pin tries to take Fancy Wreck's chance of returning away but does not succeed. Heading into the second lap, the GTO tries to overtake him again, and it actually succeeds this time, allowing him to take a safety spot from Fancy Wreck. Not just that, but Arcaadely's second place is also taken away by Kirby. And with nothing else to do about this situation, the Demio and the AE86 are now trying to claim back the top 2 spots that are rightfully theirs. Or something like that, I don't know. Anyways, on Terra's and the Sigma Thruster's side of things, it looks like they are actually holding up against the rest of the pack. Well, the Megane may be overtaken by the Civic, but he's doing great regardless. Heading through this section of the track, Chotka is now trying to overtake the Sigma Thruster the same way Spike 1999 did it. However, an overtaking opportunity is what's needed for that to happen, which she did not find one on this section of the track. As you would expect, Fancy Wreck's and Arcaadely's attempts did not prevail. As a result of this, Kirby and Pin were able to easily pull away from their competition, now making their way into the third and final lap. So I guess if they weren't able to fight back against the GTO and the M2 competition, there's not really much of a point in holding back the Super Beast or the Civic. As you can see, the Demio and the AE86 are letting the Super Beast and the Civic pass them. And following them as they also wanna overtake are Dry Riser Inlet and Bastardizer. Even though Chotka and Green Turismo J don't seem to be doing very well, it's still not over for them. Regardless, after an interesting back and forth between the three, Terra Hockeyzard and Spike 1999 successfully make it past the Demio. And I guess Dry Riser Inlet is also in on overtaking them. They may have overtaken Arcaadely and Fancy Wreck, but it is unfortunately way too late to be doing any drastic changes into who places in the top 2. And it shows by the giant gap between the second placer and third placer. And just like that, Kirby in the M2 competition is back, placing first, and so is Pin in the GTO placing second. The next 4 competitors in line to finish unfortunately get left in the dark. They have to continue battling for redemption in the next races. And they are being followed by Arcaadely, Fancy Wreck, Green Turismo J, Chotka, Jakubek, Roxy Leyland, the Sigma Thruster, and Dog Hitting Hamster. While Enignot has to face the humiliation of going back on the bench. With that being said, who takes up spots 9, 10, 11, and 12 has been determined. We shall now continue to determine who comes back in the third race, which is taking place at Eiger Nordwand. So, for the first heat, we have Rosie Miranto, Dog Hitting Hamster, the Sigma Thruster, Jakubek Halo, Terra Hockeyzard, Roxy Leyland, Martso Spike 1999, Gregor Reagan, and Chotka. Here we go now. Right away, Rosie Miranto pulls away from the competition at the start line, allowing him to prevent the Alphard from being overtaken right away. And alongside him is the Sigma Thruster, who also is trying to do the exact same thing. Although with Dog Hitting Hamster right around the corner, I'm not sure if he'll be able to, as the Auto Bianchi of his seems to be also doing pretty decently. But fortunately, in the Sigma Thruster's case, it's not good enough to the point of being overtaken by him. As for the rest of the grid, Halo in the Mikuyata seems to be following them, and same can be said for Reagan and the PTSD duo. And all of this leaves Gregor and Chotka in the bottom two. Thankfully for them, however, Martso, Roxy, and Jakubek don't seem to be doing all that great either, since not only was Reagan able to beat Roxy and Martso, but Terra was also able to beat Jakubek. Those two and Spike 1999 easily catch up to the front runners, which are currently making sure that they are not being overtaken. But with Halo and Dog Hitting Hamster being overtaken, that only leaves Rosie Miranto and the Sigma Thruster, who quite literally have to defend their positions and make sure they are not being taken by the Super Beast. We'll see if they succeed on the second lap. The Super Beast closes in the gap between them already, and same can be said for Spike 1999 closing in the gap between Halo. Not only that, but it looks like both of their overtaking opportunities are actually successful ones. An impressive double overtake by Spike 1999, as he not only overtook Halo, but the Sigma Thruster as well. That leaves Rosie Miranto as the last front runner that hasn't been overtaken yet. Across the bridge, he drives in the Alphard. Unfortunately, he isn't able to fight back against the Super Beast, which found an overtaking opportunity on him. The 2015 Civic also has no problems with overtaking him, allowing him to claim a top 2 spot. As for Reagan, he finally managed to overtake the Sigma Thruster. All of that may be happening in the front of the grid, but what about the back? To answer your question, there's currently a three-way battle between the SFR, the Aventime, and the DS3 for who's getting benched. It looks like Roxy found an overtaking opportunity on Jakubek, however, she isn't really able to overtake right away. But that's not gonna stop her, she tries again on this final corner. But while she is trying to overtake Jakubek, Dog Hitting Hamster has been overtaken by Gregor and Chotka, as they, alongside Halo, are now trying to overtake the Sigma Thruster heading into the third and final lap. There also seems to be some heat going on for the front of the grid, because not only was he able to overtake Rosie Miranto, but the battle for who gets to come back in the tournament is now down to him, Terra, and Spike 1999, with him actively trying to overtake the Super Beast in the pits. But Terra is not gonna let the pits overtake him, as I'm guessing he is done with being outshadowed by someone else all the time. As you can see, the Super Beast is making sure the pits is not able to overtake it. Now only the uphill stands in his way. Reagan reaches overtaking distance, however, he isn't able to overtake, with the Super Beast now cock-blocking the pits. Through the downhill and into the very final corners of the track, and unfortunately for Reagan, it doesn't look like he is able to overtake the muscle car. One final overtaking opportunity comes for the pits, although that said opportunity isn't really used well, which means the next two returning spots of the tournament go to Spike 1999 and Terra Hockeyzard, which basically puts Reagan's pits in a dire situation, Same can be said for Gregor's Scirocco, Riamemia RX-7 of Chotkaz, Halo's Mikuyara, Rosie Miranto's Alphard, the Sigma Thruster dog-hitting hamster Roxy Leyland, and Martso. Although they're not going back on the bench like Jakubek is, they are still yet to achieve redemption. For the second heat, we have Godhead, Tom the Cat, Arcaadely, Marionette, Fancy Wreck, Chudmobile, Cassidy J, Oatmeal Scucolati, Green Turismo J, Ferrari GT Sport, Dry Riser Inlet, and Bastardizer. Off the start line we go with Tom the Cat and Arcaadely immediately being quick to overtake Godhead. And unfortunately for Godhead, her short-ass gears prevent her from fighting back. And because of that, she falls down to 8th place by the time she makes it to the first corner. Ferrari, Oatmeal Scucolati, Chudmobile, and Cassidy J go down the hill, with what looks like Marionette and Tom the Cat trying to hold them off. And I guess you can also say that they're somewhat battling between each other. The Swift tries to overtake the Qashqai, but it doesn't look like the Qashqai is actually letting go that easily. While that is happening, the Land Cruiser is already second to last, with Green Turismo J being the last one to overtake her. Even then, his 2020 Civic finds an overtaking opportunity before we are even done with lap 1. Now he is off to catch back up to Fancy Wreck, who is being left behind by Dry Riser Inlet and Bastardizer, who themselves are easily making it through the pack, and same can be said for Cassidy J and Ferrari. Only thing standing between them and the top two now are Arcaadely and Marionette. The Swift goes down on the final corner, and Arcaadely is once again put in a situation where he has no other choice than to cock-block the cars heading into the second lap. Unfortunately for him, however, the cock-block itself wasn't very successful, because both the Focus ST and the Crossbow R easily overtake him on the braking zone. And once again, Arcaadely is completely powerless to stop them. Not only that, but soon, he and Marionette are gonna have to deal with trying to hold off the others who are also catching up to them now. And from what I can tell, it looks like the first ones actually catching up to them happen to be Chudmobile and Oatmeal Scucolati. Or wait, never mind, the A45 got overtaken by Bastardizer. And Dry Riser Inlet too? Damn, he really had to deal with a double position loss in a span of 5 seconds. If you're wondering, Green Turismo J did in fact catch back up to the rest. Now that they made it to the uphill section of the track, we can tell that Dry Riser Inlet's overtake on Oatmeal Scucolati was indeed successful. In the meantime, Bastardizer successfully overtook Marionette. Not only that, but the RCF immediately closes in the gap between the Demio. However, he isn't able to overtake Arcaadely as easily. But with 1 lap remaining, I'm not sure if Arcaadely will be able to keep that up. It also looks like Chudmobile tried to overtake Marionette, but ended up being overtaken instead. Specifically by the Civic, C4 Corvette, and the A45 AMG. Meanwhile, Bastardizer successfully finds an overtaking opportunity on Arcaadely and gladly takes it. I know the race is not over yet, but I'm not actually sure if he'll be able to make an impact on whether or not he makes it to the top 2. Because, well, let's just say Ferrari and Cassidy J have been busy building a huge gap over everyone else this entire time. Yeah, talk about locking in. They are easily cruising through the uphill section of the track which they just made it to. And I'm guessing this is a case of you may be in overtaking distance, but that doesn't immediately guarantee an overtake, because Ferrari has been unable to overtake Cassidy J. Like, this whole time, the Focus ST has been ahead of the Crossbow R. And going into the final corner of the track, it doesn't look like anything is gonna be changing in that regard. But either way, it looks like who's gonna be placing in the top 2 has already been determined long ago. Yeah, it's Cassidy J in first place and Ferrari in second place. Welcome back to the tournament, you two. This also means we have another set of competitors who are in a dire situation as a result, which includes Bastardizer, Green Turismo J, Arcaadely, Marionette, Dry Riser Inlet, Oatmeal Scucolati, Chudmobile, Fancy Wreck, and Tom the Cat. While Godhead, who's in dead last, is going back on the bench. With that race over, we have now determined who's going into spots number 13, 14, 15, and 16. However, there is still 8 spots left to fill in, so it's time to determine who takes up the last 8 spots in the 4th and final race of the redemption, which is taking place at BB Raceway. It all comes down to a final battle between Rosie Miranto, Dog-Hitting Hamster, Tom the Cat, the Sigma Thruster, Arcaadely, Halo, Marionette, Fancy Wreck, Roxy Leyland, Marzo, Chudmobile, Gregor, Reagan, Chotka, Oatmeal Scucolati, Green Turismo J, Dry Riser Inlet, and Bastardizer. Remember guys to give it all you've got because this is your last chance at redemption. Rosie Miranto tries to once again pull away by having a decent start off the line, and it does work somewhat, but not enough to guarantee first place because Arcaadely and the Sigma Thruster alongside many others are already trying to catch up to him. Hell, Reagan already made it through the pack and is catching up to him as we speak. Marionette overtakes Arcaadely while Halo and Dog-Hitting Hamster are being chased down by Fancy Wreck, Roxy Leyland, Chudmobile, and Oatmeal Scucolati all at once. There's even some carnage in the back with Chotka nearly spinning out, costing herself time. We are now heading into the second lap with Marzo and Bastardizer making it through the Qashqai's cock blocking, managing to pull off a triple overtake on the Aventime Mini and A45. Both Marionette and the Sigma Thruster successfully made it through Rosie Miranto's cock blocking alongside Arcaadely. Not only that, but after a constant back and forth between many competitors overtaking him back and forth, Dog-Hitting Hamster manages to make his way to the top 8. And he is being followed by Marzo, Fancy Wreck, and Green Turismo J, who also overtook the Alphard. And they are now trying to pull away, but it's no use, as Halo, Bastardizer, Oatmeal Scucolati, Dry Riser Inlet, and Gregor all make it through Rosie Miranto's cock blocking and are now trying to chase them down. We now reach the final lap with Bastardizer closing in the gap between Green Turismo J and Fancy Wreck, who, if you're wondering, are both trying to overtake Marzo's DS3. But Marzo doesn't let go of his position, and that gives Dry Riser Inlet and Bastardizer an opportunity to overtake both of them. And they now try to head off into the finish line while actively being battled against by Arcaadely, Green Turismo J, and Fancy Wreck. And after an intense battle between everybody in the grid, the 8 spots into round 5 go to Reagan, the Sigma Thruster, Marionette, Dog-Hitting Hamster, Marzo, Bastardizer, Dry Riser Inlet, and Arcaadely. This means that alongside the 6 competitors who went back on the bench, we have to say goodbye to Fancy Wreck, Green Turismo J, Halo, Oatmeal Scucolati, Gregor, Chotka, Roxy Leyland, Chudmobile, Rosie Miranto, and Tom the Cat. And that's about it for the redemption round. With our 24 competitor lineup determined, I am glad to say that this tournament has been rebuilt and is ready to continue where we left off throughout the summer. Anyways, if you enjoyed, which I know you did, like the video and maybe even consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in round 5.